Hey, welcome back to Birds of a Feather. It's your girl AJ, the Suburban Princess, here with a solo pod before the holidays. Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. Without my co-ed, with the holidays starting literally this week, it's going to be kind of hectic to kind of get us together as Ed's kind of traveling. And I personally just decided to do this on my week off. So um, enjoying my t-shirt here for shout out to Echo Boy and ABCD Girl. Shout out to Shantae and her crew who are running this lovely GoFundMe right now. And I will put the link in my bio for this particular episode for you to support. Works with the Eagles Autism Foundation as well. And so, this is all team Echo Boy and ABCD Girl. You get one of these shirts. Yeah. Especially get a green one for the birds, as we're about to talk about now. So, happy early holidays. I just wanted to get my thoughts on the last two wins that these Eagles have sustained versus the Raiders, as well as the most recent Commanders win on Saturday. I don't know about y'all, but Saturday, 5 o'clock was a weird time. But this is what happens when you got a team now that is officially, what, 10-5 now? And they should be up there like the Patriots are technically, but whatever. We've been spoiled as fans. They've been winning a lot for us. They've been sacrificing a lot for us as fans. Yes, it has not looked pretty. This year, it seemed like it didn't look pretty a lot more than it didn't look pretty in the previous beginning of the years, but whatever. Wins are wins. There were a lot of stupid losses in the middle of the season, as we know. But as fans, we got to be patient because this is going to get murkier and murkier until we figure out who this team is offensively. Right now, with Jalen Hurts getting back to his running ways, trusting in what the defense is showing him. Um, Saquon is getting more touches, yes, but at the same time, I think that now that he's broken his 1,000 yards, hopefully that means we'll lay off of using him too much for these last couple of games for the regular season so that Tank Bixby can get some touches. Will Shipley kind of put himself in the doghouse because he messed up that return, and I think he just had a hard time reading when to run the punt return in this most recent game with the Commanders. So I think Will needs to not return punts. I think they should either leave that up to Covey all the time, or if they want to switch it up, try using Tank because maybe Tank can read how those holes look because I know they want to give Shipley touches because he has kind of been quiet, with Saquon and, Tank barely getting touches. So they're trying to just show up personnel, but it really was not a good look for him. The special teams was also having a bad night. There were just a lot of issues, but the offense managed to overcome them. The first half wasn't as great as the second half. That seems to be a lot of the issues this year. I think there's times too when you could tell when Hurts is thinking too much or Hurts is not letting go of the ball, which means again he's in battling with his trust issues probably. But I also do think that AJ has been getting more touches because everything is starting to slowly sink in. Mind you, I think that we all thought this was going to sink in a little sooner, but I mean, we're not on the field. We don't know what's really being shown to them. And we also can't really even tell, even when we watch highlights or whatever film you have access to outside of that. As a fan, I know that I have gotten impatient with this team a lot this year, but it's also the result of being spoiled with a win. Here, more succinctly, it's starting to become more obvious that this team is starting to figure out what their identity can be. What we have to realize too as fans is that at this point you have to realize the O line has not been the real O line all year. So this season has been double the hurdle for them because on top of injuries happening at the time they've happened, there have been guys still playing on injuries that they probably haven't given time to heal, but they've been good enough to want to play. Cam Jurgens hasn't been Cam Jurgens, as of last year. But we also know off season he got back surgery. So usually back surgery doesn't always really make things easier for you. Lane Johnson and his injury with his foot. Landon with probably a lot of lower body issues. Landon's fought through a lot of stuff and he continues to play. Although sometimes I wish he wouldn't because I feel like if he's not going to feel like himself, it's just going to throw the whole line off. But honestly, if you really think about the guys that really make that O line the O line, if they're all out resting, then you got nothing. And Jalen's going to be even more, skitsy behind the line. So I just feel like you have to kind of count your blessings each game. The Raiders game was they were looking more like themselves, but um, the Commanders game is always going to be an issue, and then they're going to see them after they play the Bills this Sunday. But I do feel like you have to take it as it comes because visually they're not exciting this year. Visually, it's been kind of a pain in the ass to be a fan because you don't know when they're going to be consistent on offense as they have been on defense, which I'll get to next. But it's also just been one of those days where you have to kind of just be happy that they win, And yes, winning has always been the bottom line. But have we wanted our wins to look a little easier? Yes. But you also say winning can be boring. You can watch a game and be totally flawless and have nothing to gripe about, and that's kind of a yawner. But you can also have games that you don't understand why certain plays happen the way they do. And sometimes I wondered during the Commanders game if Sirianni was injecting some of his voice in there because it just seemed a little janky in the first half. We seem to have issues with the clock now all of a sudden again, and now fourth down calls are looking stupid. So I can always tell when Sirianni's in the ear of the coordinator. And then I also understand why sometimes this team doesn't always execute correctly because they're not sure or they're thinking too hard. It just seems like a lot of the games this year have started out where it just seemed like they were doing too much of nothing, and we as fans wonder why they couldn't just score faster and easier than they have to in the fourth, when before they used to you'd be able to put all four quarters together, and it does still seem like it's still choppy. As a fan, it is a pain in the ass to watch, but you have to realize the beauty of this team is that they're never out of it. Similarly to like how the Chicago Bears just won their game versus the Packers, that game was a mess, and the Packers very much deserved to win that game. But Chicago never gave up, and they forced overtime, and they came out and won in the end. So you kind of respect a team that keeps fighting even when it seems like it's pretty much lost, because you just never know. And this year in general in the NFL, which I think every commentator or analyst can attest to, is that it has been a very unpredictable season. There have been a lot of early injuries, and they continue to pile up. There seem to be a lot of ACL issues this year. There's going to be a lot of guys not being able to probably practice during training camp next season. So the NFL draft next year is definitely going to be highly highly examined, I should say, by any of the scouts, because there's going to be a lot of needs for a lot of teams. More so, even backup QB is going to be a situation because a lot of these QBs weren't always ready to show up because there were constant repetitive injuries, like in Minnesota's case with JJ. He was out again with a hand injury or wrist. He probably broke something. The kid has not been healthy consistently, so for him to grow as an actual starter, it's probably going to take a year or two longer for him to be considered trustworthy. I don't know if he'll stay in Minnesota. He may end up being a third stringer, until he gets really mindful of his body and where it's supposed to be and the timing. There may be a lot of things in Minnesota may not want to entertain at this point with him as a starter. I think there was just a lot of pressure on him to be ready this year, and he still hasn't really consistently manifest a capable understanding of the offense as well as maintain his own health. Um, but back to the Eagles, I think the Eagles only have questions as far as the offense, as far as availability. We all know after this year, Dallas Goedert most likely will not be re-signed, or maybe he will. I don't know. I feel like Goddard has had a lot of shots this year, and he's been very present, with the exception of the 1 or 2 weeks that he was out for his ankle or knee or whatever it was, because he's 30 now and he's going to be a dad in literally a month. Congratulations. Yes, I'm a hater, but I'm happy for him at this time. But most likely he may not be there. I mean, they seem to always bring in a tight end that doesn't seem to really do the things that Dallas can do and have his type of availability that's desperately needed in terms of using him for the tush push. And then this year they've decided to use Goddard as a running back practically, and a lot of the sneaky passes that shuffle passes that Hurts has given him into a short yardage into the end zone. That's been helpful, and he's also been kind of just running around, just being there when he needs them. And I think they've decided to use him more than just long distance or middle of the field. He's been kind of a sneaky running back. Um, so I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not assuming he's coming back. I don't even know if maybe he will retire or if he'll decide to just take a 2-year contract somewhere else. I don't know. I would like to think he would retire as an Eagle, but you know, I think at this point everyone knows how Dallas was on the bubble after this season anyway. So, but I think he's more than earned a chance to, go into free agency and decide if he wants to hang his hat here long term or does he want to entertain, the open market. There are tons of other teams that could use a reliable tight end like him, and maybe a system that uses him a lot more and more consistently is where you might end up. But I mean, honestly, I would never want to see him other than being an Eagle. But I understand that knowing that he almost didn't come back this season, I wouldn't be shocked. But as much of a fan as I am of him, I do not see anybody really replacing him here, even if they draft another tight end in the draft. I really don't see anybody being as useful as he's become in these last 6, 7, 8 years. Cameron Latu, I know, is supposed to be a tight end, but they've been mostly using him for special teams. I don't know if maybe he's good at blocking yet. I don't know. I think they used him, I think, during the Commanders game, as far as what I remember hearing. But if he ends up being the next up, I would assume that might need that might mean that Calcaterra may not even be back or extended, if not already. Um, it's very hard to replace someone like Dallas Goedert in the sense that his height and his um, capability to adjust to any kind of scheme that they have for the offense, regardless of coordinator. Um, he's managed to still, stick his neck out and be a very important piece. So I would hate to see him go if Howie doesn't decide to retain him, or if he decides to accept whatever Howie offers. His agent may decide he deserves better, and he does. But some guys get stuck in the homey kind of feeling and could care less about money at that point because they just feel comfortable. But I don't know. I mean, Dallas has a lot of stuff that on his plate that he could probably use a big payday for. Um, so at this point, I don't know. Defense honestly has been desperately needing um, help, but at the same time, they have made do with a lot of guys that have stepped up. Like Jordan Davis has definitely put his neck out there and has improved, and he's carried himself in his new weight, his new body, in such a way that now people are talking about him being an actual threat on the defense. Nakobe Dean just went down again on an injury, but it looks like it's not severe, so I don't think he'll be out for more than a week or two. He'll definitely most likely be playoff ready. Um, you don't hear a lot about Zach Bond this year, but that's probably a good thing because that means that he's probably doing other things that. I mean, he did get a pick during this Commanders game, but you don't hear his name as much as as before. But he's definitely a force out there. Reed Blankenship has been starting to get better looks. He actually got a pick, or no, or did he? I don't know if he got no. Cooper got the pick this past game, but Blankenship, I think it's been more of a captain in the sense that he's been making sure everybody else is in the right spot. So I don't think he's been needing to get that notoriety, but he's been out there and he's been visible this year, more so than the first part of the season. I think a lot of us felt like Reed was just getting hurt or just kind of nowhere. Um, and we still need to figure out exactly what the cornerback situation is going to be because besides using Coop back and forth, they brought Marcus Epps back. Um, from what I'm hearing, sounding like he's back where he should have been. I still honestly do miss CJ GJ in the sense that he was definitely a presence in that part of the field. But I mean, Adoree has been up and down, as we know. I mean, he was in presence more in this game, and then I think even in the last Dallas game. Um, but at the same time, I do feel like Adoree is definitely, you know, had his last snap as far as the team. I don't think he's a consistent, reliable DB, but he's doing what he can for, you know, for what he has left. Um, we definitely wish that we had somebody better there, obviously. Um, Keeley still kind of manages to put himself in bad positions, whether on special teams or not. I think that him and Sydney both have the tendency to over pursue and it puts them in a bad position. Um, I think a lot of their problem is overcompensation, thinking too much, doing too much to the point where they're causing penalties. Like Keeley didn't have to create that penalty in the end zone, but towards the end of that game, it was just unnecessary. And he seems to not know what to do with himself sometimes when he's man to man or out there by himself. So, I don't think it's a question that they're not going to find a way to either release him or trade him or however his situation is. I don't think he's going to be on the team much longer because he hasn't really done enough to really make you overlook more of the cons of his playing time. So, and Sydney, for once he didn't knock himself out. As much as I love that he's speedy and he's cute, but I feel he's just a liability to himself and the team at times because he's just doing crazy shit. And I feel like sometimes I wonder if maybe he should be in another position. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't need to be a defensive player. Maybe he needs to be, a running back. I don't know. But I feel like his speed and his ability to want to hit is something that should be used on another part of the field. Or maybe he just needs to be in another sport. Maybe he's a kickboxer. Maybe he's I don't know. He just needs to be doing something that allows him to just be a speed freak and, the big hurt guy that wants to hurt people. Maybe he's just secretly a kickboxer. I don't know. I just don't know if football is where he belongs. But, um, it was fun trying to get to find out what he was going to be on the team. But as much as I wanted to vouch for him because I felt like he had a good story and, his brother is very productive as a running back on the Bengals, but they're just two different types of players, clearly. But I just wonder if maybe Sydney just doesn't really have a feel for where he should be as far as the Eagles right now. So he may be a question mark too in the future. Well, not may, he most likely is, but I think I've, as a fan, kind of pulled back on my admiration of his playing style because I just feel like it just doesn't make any sense sometimes, the decisions he makes. But moving on, Jalen Carter supposedly will be coming back for this next game. Perfect timing. Hope it doesn't disrupt any, chemistry that has been well established now with the defense missing him for the past 3 or 4 games. But I just pray that whatever attention that or treatment he had on his shoulders helps him manage because there's only a couple games left. I saw some commentary on the social media about people saying, is it too late to put him in? Should we just save him for the playoffs? But he needs to get some reps. He needs to get real game time reps so that he knows how to deal with whatever treatment he had done to see if he can handle it. Because if by playoffs, if he comes in there cold and he just seems a tight, very un-Jalen Carter like mess, it's going to disrupt the line and it's going to disrupt the chemistry all over again. So he needs to see where he's at progress wise outside of getting, rehab and whatever he's been doing. Um, he was one that apparently they wanted him to adjust his regimen to his body as well, like get a little slimmer, get a little toned. So maybe he's been working on that in the meantime. I mean, there was nothing else for him to do other than do that rehab while he healed from whatever treatment he got. So him and Lane Johnson coming back is very, very important. Fred Johnson did what he could while Lane was out, but I think Fred also had some moments that you just wonder why he's there, full time sometimes. It just seems like he's getting blown up a lot, but then also he held it down during a huge ass brawl in the Commanders game. So thank God Tyler Steen did not get suspended officially today. They did not decide to suspend him. I think he only threw the punch because it was thrown to him first, and ambushed by six other smaller players. Why, I don't know. I mean, that whole game escalated in the last like 5 minutes of the game. It was just stupid. But, when you're getting beat 19 points, I guess you would be upset, but I don't understand why the little guys decided they had enough fire in them to try to get up in Tyler Steen's face. But I think a lot more fans have saluted to number 56 now because he was willing to stand up. And at that point, that game got really out of control quickly because it was also showing that the Eagles finally figured out who they were at the right point in that game. Whatever weaknesses they kind of displayed and miscommunication was overlooked by that point. They had gotten into a rhythm. You know, Smitty came in when he needed to come in. Dotson, I think, got one good catch. So, and obviously Dallas got a great touchdown at the last minute when Jalen finally broke through and didn't get tackled. So, yeah, a lot of stuff kind of fell into place in the second half that wasn't working in the first. So, I do think there's still a disconnect with the coordinator, but I don't think it was as obvious these last couple games, especially during the Vegas game, because the Vegas wasn't really putting up that much of a fight. So I think it became obvious that they were going to take over that game from the beginning. It really could have been uglier, but I think there were also miscues early in that game as well that probably prevented them from having a higher score versus the Raiders because they weren't really giving them anything. And Kenny Pickett was pretty much dying out there with his O line. So, all in all, I'm hopeful for this next win. Although the Bills are desperate because they showed a vulnerable side. These past couple games, they're starting to look kind of beat down. I think that Josh not being able to throw to Keon Coleman for whatever reason, whatever's going on behind the scenes with Keon Coleman, him being a healthy scratch during a game that he probably would have been very helpful to Josh because Josh was literally risking life and limb out there. At one point, he had to be pulled from the game because he had a slight injury, but he was able to go back in. But I think that this time of the year, I think a lot of the quarterbacks are feeling the brunt of getting beat up. I mean, besides the fact Jackson Dart just came back from yet another concussion and still played bad. It just shows you that a lot of the quarterbacks probably don't need to play all 18 games, but for those who are trying to get in that last rush or that last seed in the playoffs, is the reason why you're probably still seeing them line up behind the O line. And then you got the teams that have been out of for weeks and they just want to play for chemistry, for I don't know, just to get a feel. Like Shador Sanders is trying to still get a feel of this offense that he really didn't want to be a part of, probably once he realized how bad they were, but he needed to show that he can play. And he really showed it early in that game, but just that team is so bad. It's just there's no way that they can really pull out a full win unless a team totally goes ass up. And so it's very hard for the Browns to get wins when they're not really the team that they should be. And never really got a chance to be. I mean, even with Dylan Gabriel starting over Shador for a while and then going out and then having to go in when Shador had a finger injury over the weekend, it just shows you how fickle the fan base is and confused there probably are because you don't know who you can trust that's good enough to last to get a win because it's hard for Browns players to get wins because if they're not injured, they're just bad. They're running the wrong routes, Judy. Or if they are good, they suffer a huge injury that takes them out. The rookie Judkins. So God bless him and pray for his recovery because he has still the broken fibula and a dislocated knee. And he was actually pretty much the only other offensive bright spot that Shador had to throw to or give the ball to, and he lost him. So, Shador doesn't really have much to work with. So Shador needs that time to figure out who he is and how he can adjust to every piece of adversity that has been going on in that organization since he got drafted. So good luck to him. And then you got other teams like the Panthers who came out of nowhere and pretty much kept the faith all season when they were not looking like a team to even talk about. And now here they are beating out Tampa Bay. So things can happen in a very quick moment, but you're never really out this year. And that's why this year is a very funky NFL year. There are a lot of things that are keeping teams in it, and then there's a lot of teams that had many chances and squandered. I don't know what the hell Detroit was doing with versus the Steelers, but then again, that funky ending with the ref was out of pocket. So, but Detroit should never had, like this coach just recently said, the coach for Dan Campbell, saying that they shouldn't have been in that position where it would come down to that kind of a play. So, yeah, the refs can kind of also make the ending of a game more dramatic than it needs to be. But again, as a team, you should know what you're capable of and execute. And you see that not every team makes it easy. And therefore, things can go left or right depending on, who's focused and who's not. So, as a fan, entertaining, confusing. And it is noteworthy that some of these teams that you never thought would be even a discussion in a wild card or even be a discussion in the playoffs are suddenly showing a little fight. It's something to watch. Tonight's game, Monday night, is Indy versus San Francisco. So big old grandpa Philip Rivers back on the field. Hopefully he's ending this game in one piece because San Francisco is pretty rough. And, they come out with a decent win because the Colts kind of need some kind of IV to even have a decent record at this point now that they've lost the other quarterback for the rest of the season, Daniel Jones, for injury. So, yeah, so it's kind of a hot mess in some of these teams. Some of these teams, it's just been the nature of the beast of the game. And it's also just been because just stupid factors going against you. Maybe a late call, maybe a suspension of a teammate for some dumb reason. DK Metcalf, most recent one on the Steelers, allowing his emotions to get the best of him and swiping at a fan who's been messing with him since he was on the Seahawks. So he got suspended for 2 games. So, things happen, whether it's not injury or if it's off the field drama that keeps you off the field. There's just been a lot of stuff that a lot of teams have had to overcome to get them on the field and get a win. And it has not been easy. The Patriots are back to looking like their winning ways are starting to manifest. But that game versus the Ravens, it could have went another way had Lamar not been injured early in the game again. After getting over a sickness, it's like Lamar has been fighting himself all season, and the team has not helped him one bit. But they've never helped him. He's pretty much always been his own hero. But when they did have a chance to get into those playoffs, the ball was dropped. So, yeah, that's the story of the Ravens. I think they need a lot of changes in their front office as well as their coaching staff before Lamar can smell another chance at a Super Bowl. And until then, they just gonna be up and down, pretty much. Disappointing. So, and the Bucks disappointing as well, but they also had a lot of injuries early, and sometimes Baker can just try too hard and take himself out of the game. So, but again, these Eagles games have been watchable, but this whole season, when you look at it in reverse, has been hard to watch as a fan in general. The growth of this team post Super Bowl win truly shows how hard it is to win back to back. But here they are, back to back East champions. So that's one to be proud of because that hasn't happened, and Jalen Hurts has been a championship winner since he started. On some level, he has been in a playoff scenario since he started as a quarterback. So if that doesn't keep confidence in you that Hurts is definitely that guy, then I don't know what to tell you. He was MVP, and won the Super Bowl last year. So if you don't think he's not capable of doing it again, you are not looking at the same dude on the field. So we have to be patient. Patience is a virtue, as we all know. I'm very impatient. So I'm one to talk, but I'm learning myself. As disappointed as I've been as a fan off and on this year with this team, and I found myself saying I hate this team a lot in the last month, but I'm also happy when they figure it out. Yes, we wish it was cleaner, but as much as you want to hate Sirianni at times and his coaching staff, he has one of the best records since Andy Reid. So you can't really hate at what's great, but it sure can be a pain in the ass to watch. All right, so that's my little commentary for this episode of Birds of a Feather. Once again, I will leave the link here if you're interested in getting one of these cute t-shirts and supporting the Autism Foundation, as well as a wonderful lady named Shantae, who I've interviewed on my other channels if you haven't seen before. So you should know who she is by now. And if you don't, donate just for the sake of donating. It's the holidays. Give so that you can be given unto you. Or something like that. Anyway, thanks for watching this girl, AJ Suburban Princess. Happy holidays, all. And we will be back with a co edition after the holidays. Happy Christmas, Kwanzaa. Take care. Bye.